David, what's up, man? Great to have you on the podcast. I've been looking forward to this one.
Ryan, likewise. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I'm not sure that we've had. What would you consider yourself? A dating coach? Is that what you would say, or what would you consider yourself?
Yeah, I think the official title these days is dating coach.
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure I've had a dating coach on, and admittedly, I'll tell you the reason is because a lot of it just seems to be kind of gimmicky and hacking. And when I see that kind of stuff, I feel like it's not about men valuing and appreciating women, but your content, I got to say, is a lot different, which is why I reached out to you because it feels like even though you're teaching guys some tactics, some strategy, it feels like there's a genuine appreciation for the opposite sex.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm the last person to talk bad about other people in the industry. I know some people who I really like. Then there's some ideas out there that I obviously don't like. But one thing that I like about my approach, obviously, is that I don't have a lot of resentment towards women. I do
Right.
understand the struggle that men go through. I do understand why men would get to a position why they're resentful. I completely understand why women would get resentful towards men. It's very easy. I think Jordan Peterson talks a lot about the idea that it's very easy to get resentful towards the idea of life in general. But I understand that there's really bad people that are men and really bad people that are women. And it's really important, especially in the dating space, that we keep a positive attitude because I have zero negative feelings towards any particular group. I just understand, okay, you can find bad apples within any tree. But why on earth? I believe women are, I mean, Jung's entire philosophy is based, was it Jung or Freud? I don't even know. That we do most of the things we do for the appreciation and the validation of women. And I disagree with that because I think we do a lot for ourselves first, but women play such a fundamental role. And it is a bit unfortunate to see there's a lot of people who are really resentful towards it, or it goes into the direction of manipulation, lying, and deception. So that's not what we stand for.
Yeah, there does seem to be a lot of manipulation, and it's interesting. I'm not sure. I'm really curious what you think about, has dating and approaching women got harder, or has it always been what it is? I mean, obviously there's new technology available that I think from the outside looking in makes it easier, but it seems like a lot of guys really struggle, and I'm not sure with if it's because of their cultural or social conditioning or if this has always been the way it is.
I think it has gotten more difficult because it's not a skill set that's being taught, one. And two, there's a bit of a stigma around it. I mean, your great great grandfather and my great great grandfather, they probably met our great great grandmother by approaching her. Granted, you could make an argument that they grew up in a similar social circle, cities were smaller, so they stumbled upon each other by accident. But I think being able to introduce yourself to a member of the human species and see if there's a connection or see if I can make a connection happen, if there's compatibility, is a very, very normal thing. But it's a skill set that hasn't been taught. That's really all it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with intimidation. Guys freak themselves out. I was in the grocery store in the vegetable aisle the other day, and there was an attractive woman, and I said something. I don't even know what I said. I said something, but it wasn't scary. I don't understand why it's scary for guys. I think they put women on pedestals they don't belong, and they freak out when they see a beautiful woman. It's like, just say something funny, say something silly, ask her a question. Hey, what's the difference between that zucchini and that zucchini? Like, do something.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why guys struggle, but I know they do, and that's why this is so important we talk about.
I get it though. I completely understand why guys struggle. And by the way, that's good. That's called what we call, that's an opinion opener, where you just ask, what do you think about this or that? There's so many different types of openers. The opener in and of itself doesn't matter, but it is scary because the reason we are afraid of it is because there's something called approach anxiety. And getting rejected is one of the deepest fears we as human beings have. I'm not a biologist, I'm not an anthropologist, but what I've read so far is over the years is that we as human beings existed in tribes of 2 to 300,000 people, 2 to 300 people around 2 to 300,000 years ago ish. And getting rejected from the tribe would mean almost certain death. If we would act too far outside of the socially accepted norms, we'd be sent into exile, or we'd get killed by the tribal leader, the so-called alpha male, and he'd hit us in the head with a brick in the middle of the night. But if we're being sent into exile, we would lose protection from other men. We'd lose the ability to go hunt with other men. We'd get attacked by other tribes, or at the very least, we'd lose the ability to pass on our genes to other female members of the tribe. So we deeply care about the approval of other people because it's for survival reasons. So it's ingrained in us. It's actually quite normal to fear because, I mean, let's take it to an extreme. People who don't care about the opinion of other people at all, they act in manners that aren't conducive to a harmonious societal co-living environment. So there is a balance. Now, most men, they care a little bit too much where it hinders their own free self-expression. And they're not able to introduce themselves. And I think I always use the word, you got to be able to introduce yourself respectfully and effectively. I almost feel stupid saying the word respectfully all the time because isn't it obvious? Like, do I have to tell somebody like you, do it respectfully? No, most of us, we know that inherently. But I say it for two reasons. One, because if you have a rather large audience, or rather, if the message gets out by accident, if the video goes viral to a lot of people, some men don't have the most respectful intentions. So one is to remind them. And second of all, there's a lot of nonsense PC culture. So I have no interest in getting platforms. So I just want to tell people, yeah, no, I do believe in respect. So I have to say, even though I feel almost stupid saying it because it's so obvious and I'm not interested in virtue signaling at all, I have to say as a reminder, yes, we really actually care about respect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I agree with you in that there's this movement of, and I call it the zero F's mentality movement, where everybody's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. And if they don't like me, that's their problem. Like, no, that's your problem. You know, if the right people don't like you, that's your problem. You're not going to get women. You're not going to grow your business. You're not going to pick up new clients. So I think the pendulum has swung really far. I am curious though about your statement about respect and being appropriate. The thing that I think about immediately that comes to mind is I go to the gym every day and I see attractive, fit women at the gym. And although I'm not there to pick up women, I think a lot of guys do go to the gym to pick up women. But then you see these movements of these ladies who, and I wouldn't even call it ladylike behavior necessarily, but they'll post a video of somebody, a guy like just going to help her pick up weights or to rack a weight because he's trying to engage. He's trying to, and it's okay. Just be flattered. That's it. Just be flattered, I think. And if you're not interested, cool, not interested, but at least be flattered. Him trying to approach you is a compliment at a minimum, as long as it's done appropriately. So how does a guy navigate this culture where, everybody wants to be a victim and everybody thinks that, the slightest little sign of attention is sexual misconduct? It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, I think by picking the people you hang out with, I've seen exactly the types of videos on TikTok and on Instagram that you're referring to, where a guy looks over for half a second and boom, the camera zooms in on his face. And now everybody's
Right.
paranoid. Can I not even introduce myself to a lady in the gym? And I always say the gym shouldn't be your primary place to meet women. If you want to find somebody for a relationship, or even you just want to have a good dating life as a man for a period of time, which is an experience I believe a lot of men should go through to eventually find somebody, the gym shouldn't be the primary place. But if you're a man who values the gym, there is a chance that you might meet somebody there. So you should be able to introduce yourself. Now, if you do that, you have to become the social guy in general. You can't just be the guy who only talks to the top 10% of most attractive women, because then you're a creep. Because the definition of a creep is two things. He doesn't accept the no, and second, he's a taker. So if you are able to contribute, and we're not perfect, I'm not saying it's just you're always contributing more value than you're taking, but in general, you should aim to contribute a little bit more to the environment or society, microcosm or the macrocosm that you're in, then you're taking out of it. But if you're only talking to the hottest women, it's very clear what the value you're trying to extract from that. So what would be much better is if you just become a social guy. If you want to meet people, then you got to talk to men as well as women. Hey, do you want me to spot you? Bro, would you like me to take a quick video for your Instagram story? And then a strategy that I give guys on how to meet women in the gym, for example, is you can just ask her, excuse me, 2 seconds, if she's in your vicinity, and you can kind of like navigate that, not in a creepy way, but if she actually happens to be somewhere near you, you can ask her, sorry, would you mind taking a quick video from my Instagram story? Or would you mind taking a quick 20-second video so I can check my form later on? That is a nice, very calibrated, indirect opener. And then you can throw out one more comment, just crazy times, something actually boring that you shouldn't say at night in a bar, nightclub, because it's almost too boring, but it's effective. And then You see if she's interested in the conversation. And then if she is, you establish a little bit of attraction, you have a bit of a conversation, then you can exchange Instagram and then later invite her to the gym. Now, if you use that strategy, you have to use it once with a woman, once with a man, once with a woman,
Mm,
once with a man. Because if you only do that to women, nobody likes that. But and this is at a tactical level, because earlier you were referring to tactics. Tactics and strategies are important because they're just a framework. Because if people are completely lost, here's something you can do to start a conversation. How do I even navigate things? It gives you a rough structure to orient yourself towards. But then it really comes down to what's my intent. I think intent is going to shine through. I think Gary Vee talks a lot about that, and he's absolutely right. It's like intent is going to show in the end. And if you're a guy with genuinely good intent, to answer your question of like, how should I navigate the society if everything is just sexual misconduct? If your intent is genuinely good, most likely you're going to be fine. Should you still be cautious and careful? Yeah. But your intent is going to win in the end. So within the gym, socialize, become somebody who wants to make other people's lives better, simply with just positivity, encouragement, spotting, sometimes a very practical, sometimes at an energetic level, and then I think you're going to be okay if you pick the right people and if your intent is really, really clear.
yeah. No, that's valuable. I think there's also value, and this goes to what you said about talking to everybody, not just the hottest women, wherever you might be, is, if you are at the grocery store, you're at the gym or wherever you might be, talking to people and like deliberately trying to strike up conversation with people you are not sexually attracted to. Like, what a great way to practice, because the fear of
Yeah.
rejection is no longer there. Like, I don't care if this person's not interested in talking to me, but I am going to try my game a little bit here and see what I've got, to see what works, to see what engages, to see what doesn't. I think it's a great way to practice. And like you said, to not be the creep, just be the social guy. The other cool thing about being the social guy is there's all sorts of connections that could take place. Let's say you're talking to an elderly woman at wherever you happen to be getting your car serviced for the day. She might have a granddaughter that you might be really interested in. If you don't talk with her, you miss an opportunity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also, one of the things, if you've been in personal development probably for a significant amount of time as well, you're in it, right? You're in the space of it. And at some point, you write down mission statements. And I think it's actually useful. I think I wrote that down maybe 10 years ago, or at what point. It's like, I want to help people feel at home in the world. And that's not the only thing. And it's not all encompassing, but it's one thing. And one of the ways to feel at home in the world is to have positive interactions with people. Because if we're only focused on the news, we think people are ridiculously horrible. We forget there's a lot of really good people that are not batshit crazy. There's a lot of really good, kind people. Doesn't mean you want them as intimate friends necessarily, because you might not be that aligned on your values or your lifestyle, but there's a lot of really, really good people out there. And we can seek positive interaction points. And it really makes a difference to your mood, whether you just walk through life and you're not engaging with everybody. And it's the same in a bar or nightclub or in the shopping mall. If you have these fun little interaction points with a lady at the cashier, one little positive 15-second interaction, a little win for her, a little bit of dopamine, a little bit of serotonin for you and her, right? It's a mutual win-win, and nobody takes anything away from each other. If there's a little lady, can you just have a little fun, positive exchange, right? Obviously, if you go through life, there's going to be people who you'll have negative interactions, but you'll have to set clear boundaries. 100%. I'm not delusional. But a lot of the times, there's great opportunities to have nice little interaction points. And it's a skill set, and there's also momentum. How are you supposed to be fluent when you get to the date? How are you supposed to be able to actually establish a connection with a woman in a verbally agile manner if you haven't said a word in the last 2.5 hours because you've just been in your head?
Did I see that when it comes to maybe this was you, maybe this was somebody else, that before you go on a date, I think this is to your point here, you should call a friend to be able to get
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Was that you that said that? Call a friend
Yeah,
and just
I
get
didn't.
into the
It wasn't.
social.
I didn't make that idea up. I didn't make that idea up. I learned it from one of my first mentors 6 years ago. But it's a genius idea. Yes.
Yeah. I think the other thing too that I personally struggle with at times is I tend to be more introverted. I think a lot of your clients probably by nature are, because they need help in this department. And I can force myself to go out and interact because I know the value of doing it. Sometimes I'm de-energized. Like, I don't want to go to the concert. I don't want to go to the thing. I don't want to go, like, I just don't. It's not of interest to me. But I force myself to do it because I know there's a lot of positive benefits that come from it. Are your guys mostly introverted? And if that's the case, how do they deal with this, knowing that, hey, I'd like to go out and meet a woman, a long-term partner or a short-term partner? And I know I need to do it, but like I'm fighting against it every step of the way.
Mhm. Yeah, most of them, I would say 80% of them at least, are introverts, which is interesting because Fernanda, my fiance, she's 98, 99% introverted. And I'm completely the opposite. I'm 99% extroverted. If I work by myself in front of a laptop for 2 days, I'm deeply sad by the end of day two if I haven't had a significant amount of social interactions. I get deeply unhappy very quickly, which is not, and everybody needs social contact, by the way. I think I've heard Andrew Huberman talk about the difference between, do you know the difference between an introvert and an extrovert? What the only scientifically documented difference is?
I think based on what I've heard is that it's not that they can't be social, it's that the level of energy. So they get their energy and when they're out in social environments, and if an introvert is more drained or de-energized by that. That's kind of the difference I've heard.
And that's the common myth because
Okay. Yeah.
that's, I mean, think about it. No matter how introverted a person is, after 6 days or 5 days, everybody wants some social contact. Social contact energizes everybody, right? It's only one. So what I, and I'm probably butchering this, but the way Andrew Huberman explained it is introverts get more dopamine from social interactions than extroverts, which is counterintuitive. So they get more in a quick period of time, so they're satiated quicker. So I can be invite all of my friends, that male tribe of, they call it high quality male friends. Back in the day, that they said it's a great man, it's a good friend, right? If I can spend time with them for 9 hours and I can keep going, after 2.5 hours, Fernanda's going to go to her room and she needs to sit there for 5 minutes. That was enough because she's satiated, because she gets more dopamine quicker. Everybody needs social contact because that's one of the biggest misunderstandings. There's a brilliant book by Johann Hari called The Real Causes for Anxiety and Depression. And one of the number one factors is the lack of high quality social contact. Everybody, no matter how introverted people think they are, need high quality social contact, just less.
I'm taking notes because that's really interesting, and I can see that. I'm like, all right, good. Overwhelmed. That's what I feel, overwhelmed. But I think that has to do with what you're saying, at least on an anecdotal level. That level of dopamine. I'm like, okay, too loud, too many people. I'm good. I've got it. Check it off the list. That makes a lot of sense.
And yes, absolutely. And there's an additional component. It's one, it's that they're satiated, they need less. And if people, part of what leads to overwhelm is we exist in three different zones of comfort. There's the comfort zone. And then if we put ourselves to do something that's a little bit difficult, then we get into the zone of growth or challenge. If we do something that's even more difficult, there's so much adrenaline and cortisol in our brain, we get into the zone of overwhelm, where it far exceeds our level of competence. And a lot of people don't even want to go to bars and clubs. I like it, but I think it's not necessary. Most people come to me, they just want to find a relationship, right? I think most men in general just want to have an amazing relationship. I believe every man should go through even if it's just a very short period of time of dating, to explore options, right? Now, some men will say, I only want to have intimacy after marriage, which is perfectly fine, right? I respect that, no problem. But everybody should explore options because otherwise you don't even know what you truly want. But then it's really important that you, completely lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this?
You're talking about exploring your options, seeing what
Yeah,
is
and
out
then
there, going through a
before,
dating period. The three zones of
yeah,
comfort is something you mentioned.
exactly. Thank you so much. Yes. So, and then the people who just want to find a relationship, they do feel overwhelmed when they go to a bar or club because they might not even want to go there. They don't naturally enjoy that environment. And there's a difference between a bar or a club. I get that. A bar is maybe something they can imagine. A club is just completely overwhelming. And it's not necessary to go to bars or clubs at all because, yeah, you can. Some people say, well, the right type of women are not in bars or clubs. That's nonsense. Everybody goes to bars and clubs, right? But it's not necessary to go there. The reason they feel overwhelmed is one, because they're satiated quicker, but also because it exceeds their level of competence. Because they may not be trained in the ability to navigate a group dynamic. There's 4 or 5 people standing in front of me, making people laugh, capturing their attention, then being friendly with 3 of them and building a connection with the one lady that I'm actually interested in. That may just exceed the level of competence to an extent where they feel overwhelmed. It's just a skill set. Everybody can learn it. It's just absolutely a skill set. I have a friend of mine who used to be a computer programmer, and then he became a magician, and he did street performances in bars for 7 years. And so he's still the most brutal nerd at heart, but he's got ridiculous social skills, but purely by force and purely because he trained it, you know?
Right. Do you think that expectations play a big part in why so many men struggle, especially as it relates to approaching attractive women? Maybe they're thinking, well, I got to get into the relationship, or this one's going to be the one, and they're trying to like fit everything instead of just going out asserting themselves properly, and then letting it play out the way it's going to play out.
What do you mean with expectations towards themselves, towards life, towards women, towards one
I think
particular woman?
uh maybe one particular woman, sure. Or just the fact of like, I gotta go out to the bar, I gotta go here, I gotta go there because I gotta find this woman that I'm gonna marry. It's like, whoa, like
Yeah.
hold on a second. And so they come across desperate, they come across needy, they come across pushy, and of course, obviously that's a turnoff.
Yeah, they place a lot of expectations on themselves, first of all. They think I have to have this perfect thing to say. And while the content of your word obviously matters, because if one of us had entered this podcast and the second word out of one of our mouths would have been an insult, one word can tremendously shape a relationship. But it's not that you should expect perfection of yourself. And then they obviously place too much emphasis on one particular interaction. So I help people with online dating and real life. Any man should use online dating and real life. Online dating is amazingly efficient. You touch your phone, a beautiful woman appears if you do it the right way. But it's very time efficient because with 15, 20 minutes a day, you can do a lot. But I have a huge passion for being able to meet women in real life, be that in a Starbucks, shopping mall, at night, during the day, and be that in the gym. It's a little bit tailored to the context, as we spoke about earlier, right? So in the gym, you have to be a little bit more social, a little bit more indirect. Whereas in a shopping mall, if I see somebody, I can just walk up to her and start a conversation. Excuse me 2 seconds. I saw you. I really like your posture. You have really good style. Wanted to come meet you, and then build it from there. But the reason I think I have such a passion for it is you cannot overstate the emotional freedom that comes from being able to start relationships out of nothingness. Even when you're in a relationship later on, knowing that you've gone through a process of, I create options for myself to then choose the right woman from, as opposed to, oh, I just kind of met her, just kind of stumbled into her. You didn't evaluate whether you're aligned on your values. You didn't evaluate whether you're aligned on your personalities, your lifestyles, how you want life to be. You didn't even go through that. Children, not like religious, politics. If you're not aligned on those, you will suffer so much. There'll be so much unnecessary conflict. So going through the process of creating a lot of options for yourself, you don't have to have intimacy with all of those options, but you got to be able to have more women interested in you. And that has to get to the brain. Proof, not promises. Doing that is so good because then when you're in the relationship, you'll really know I didn't settle for this. I chose this person. It was a conscious choice, and she will forever treat you differently. And to be honest, I think women should do the same thing. And there's no win-win, there's no win-lose, right? I believe in really, truly having relationships on eye level. We can talk about the idea of leadership in a relationship later on, but women should do the same thing. Everybody should evaluate their options and then choose whoever they consider to be best. Because most men are in relationships with women, I believe, and they're so afraid of losing her. Now, we're all afraid of losing the people we love. That's normal, right? But do I have a deep knowing that I'll be okay? Because when I was with my ex-wife, the reason I only married her is because I had so much fear in my chest. I had so much anxiety. I'll never find someone like her. I'll lose her. And then I suffered tremendously for like a lot of like several years because I was in a relationship with somebody who wasn't right for me. She's not a bad person at all, but I was in a relationship with somebody who really wasn't right for me only because I was afraid of losing her. Because Tony Robbins says we're going to sacrifice our values to meet our needs. And my value might be I want to be respected. I want to have passion. I want to have intimacy. Pardon me. I want to have freedom in a relationship. But my need is I just want love and connection. And if I don't think I'll ever find someone like her, which is never true because everybody can be replaced, then I'm going to suffer. Marshall Rosenberg, he's the founder of nonviolent communication. He passed away several years ago. He says any need you have, any psychological need you have can be met independent of any particular person. And so many men get obsessed with this, exactly what you're saying. This one woman, this one interaction, it has to work out so well with her. Relax. So you should have a lot of approaches. You should have a lot of interaction points. You're going to need to meet a lot. You're going to need to meet a lot of people to be able to find somebody that you're compatible with for life or for the next coming years at least. So don't place too much emphasis on the next person, because you have to understand, if let's say you approach 20 women over the course of a night, for example, right? People say, I can't even do one. I know you don't have to do that many, but it's step by step. But what happens if I aim for 20 as opposed to one? It doesn't matter what happens on the individual one. Now, obviously, I could do 1,000 approaches, and if I do it the wrong pardon me, if I do it the wrong way, it's not going to lead me anywhere. But purely statistically, if I'm not fully off, if I'm a somewhat decent man and have a somewhat caring, kind attitude, I will have at least some positive interactions among those 20 that I can build upon. So lowering the expectation, exactly what you're saying, for each interaction is going to create way more freedom. And also, don't walk over there and say, oh, she's so beautiful, I hope she likes me. No, she's pretty, I hope I like her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also takes the awkwardness away from you too, when you don't really care about the outcome. I mean, it's such a weird dichotomy. You do care about the outcome. You want it to be a successful outcome. But I guess if it's not, then you're comfortable with it because you have other options and other plays at hand.
Yeah, because you can attach yourself to the macro outcome, but not to the micro. The macro, people say you can't force a relationship. No, you can. You people in society, we can force any outcome into existence. Be that my health, I can force a 10-kilogram weight loss journey into existence purely by force, right? Obviously, with the right strategies, it doesn't take that much force, right? You just increase your protein intake. There's great strategies that can make it a lot easier. But yes, my health, I can force a positive outcome into existence. I can make that happen. Business, I can make that happen. Social media, whatever, right? All of a sudden, with relationships, it's just supposed to happen. No, you can absolutely make a relationship happen. Never with one individual. But if I commit myself to the journey of finding the right person, and I'm willing to go through a process of evaluating my options, screening, qualifying, and attracting the right people to me through the use of communication and by improving my confidence a little bit, I can absolutely make that happen. Never with one particular individual, though, because luckily we can't control that person's free will.
Right. Right. No, it's a good point. So you said something interesting, and I'm curious about it because when you said it, I'm like, is that true? And you talked about connecting with the brain, right, which connotates logic. And I think many of us believe, whether it's true or not, that women are more susceptible. Susceptible is not the right word. Women are more likely to connect on an emotional level versus a logical one, is what we hear. And I think the term you used was proof, not promises, which makes sense to me. But isn't it more about the way a woman feels? So, for example, rather than being a logical decision, if you're the guy that can make her laugh, you probably have a stronger likelihood of forming at least an early connection with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the interesting thing is, and I'm well aware that there's a lot of differences between men and women, even though that's
Sure,
a
right.
subject. It's a conversation in and of itself.
Everybody knows that. There's only a few people. Well, there's quite a few people who are willing to say it, but even the ones who don't, they know that. They know that
Yeah,
there's a difference between
exactly.
men and
They
women.
know. Yeah, there's a big difference. And but there's also a similarity, which is interesting. Yes, I believe we as men are more logical, but people like Tony Robbins, they also say almost all of our decisions are driven at an emotional level, as logical as we think we are. The reason we're doing it is because we have needs that we're trying to meet. If a need is not being met, that creates certain emotions, right? So more often than not, if the emotion that we're experiencing, anxiety, stress, anger, frustration, doesn't come from a physiological component, sleep, sunlight, exercise, nutrition, then it's more often than not unmet needs. There is signal, right, that I either need to change my perception or my actions. So we as men, we're also emotional. Let's not forget that. And dating is a hugely
Sure.
emotional subject for us as men. But yeah, absolutely. For women, women will decide to go with a man not because it's logical. No, yes, there's certain things that women want, like kindness and respect. Great. But mainstream dating advice is just be kind, just be respectful. Yes, that's necessary, but not sufficient. My mother predominantly raised me because my father's a doctor working in Germany, working a lot. So he wasn't the predominant person at home. And my mother said two words, sei lieb, which means she always said that, sei lieb, be kind, be kind, be kind. So I grew up with a lot of feminine energy, which is awesome because I think there's a lot of men these days who are just this alpha dude all the time. And like, no, I don't know who said this. I heard it somewhere. I would like to give credit because it doesn't come from me. I don't know who said it first, but it's genius. If you're a full-time tough guy, you're a part-time liar, which is genius because it means we have masculine energy and we have feminine energy. Most men, they need to train their masculine side more. Because if we train our masculine side more, then we can communicate at the level of emotion. Because women, yes, they want kindness and respect, but they also want the man who's disagreeable. They basically really want to see that you're not willing to lose her. You need to communicate to the woman that you want her, but that you don't need her. You're never going to say it. Hey, Sarah, by the way, I want you, but I don't need you. So you're
Right.
not going to
Wouldn't
do
go over
that on the
well.
day. No, it wouldn't. But that has to be the message. And there's so many ways to do that. One of the ways is to simply be able to disagree. Most men can't even disagree when an attractive lady is in front of them because they have such scarcity. But disagreeing in a polite way, not for the sake of disagreeing, but if you
Right.
actually disagree, It shows an utter willingness to lose her.
I'm taking notes. That's where my pauses are coming in. I'm typing notes vigorously here. One of the things that you talked about was, and you kind of scanned over it a little bit, is this vision statement for helping people. Is there some sort of vision statement for finding, attracting, communicating with attractive women, or is that too much? And again, that will be communicated in the way that you approach women, and it comes across as like pushy or desperate.
What do you mean by a vision statement? Something you tell them, or a mindset that you have for yourself?
Well, I'm thinking more along the lines of, and I've heard people say, I want to quote unquote manifest, this relationship. And I don't know if I totally agree with that term, but I do think we ought to be aware of what we want. But I'm not sure I could just like, what is that show in the 80s? It's like Weird Science, where they, build this beautiful woman. You know what I'm talking about? They build this beautiful woman, and, she's the woman of their dreams. What is that show? I'll have to think about it. I'm not sure we can just create this woman out of thin air, but should we be cognizant of what type of woman we're looking for? What not only character traits, but is physical traits something that we should consider as well? Like, what is it that we should be looking for, at least on the lookout for, as we're dating and looking for a partner?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things that I do with clients and that I recommend to everybody is start aiming and start writing down there's a beautiful book by a guy called, oh God, I'm going to butcher his name, Jorge Bucay. I don't think it exists in English, which it's called The Three Questions. It exists in Spanish and in German, I believe. If it exists in English, it would be great. Maybe somebody can let people know. But I can give you a summary. 3 questions. Who am I? Where am I going? And with whom? Who am I? What do I stand for? What do I love? What do I hate? What do I want people to say about me at my funeral? What must people never say about me at my funeral? If you have nothing to live for, you have nothing to die for. Really important things. Second, what are my goals rather? Where am I going? 3 months, 6 months. I don't need to wait for New Year's resolutions, but where am I going? Aim high. Les Brown says people don't fail in life because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. And then the third is, this is who I am as a man. It starts with you as a man. But here's the problem. A lot of people in personal development nowadays say, just focus on yourself. No, you can do both. You have 112 waking hours available to yourself per week if you sleep 8 hours a night. Dating takes a couple, right? You really can focus on yourself and be on your mission as a man and find somebody. You don't need to sorry, can I curse or should I not?
No, go.
Okay.
It's just you, man. So whatever
Okay.
you're gonna say it. Don't hold back.
So you can mentally masturbate yourself to sleep for the next 5 to 10 years about personal development. That's amazing. Oh, got to work on myself, got to improve myself. Yeah, but you can do both. You can, just be the type of man that women would want you to be and they're going to come. No, it's not going to happen. Trust me, I work with a lot of very wealthy men who are really kind, good-hearted people, and it doesn't just come to them, right? You still have to go and meet women, be that online or real life. You really, really have to take action initially. Yeah, and then so basically, yourself, who am I, where am I going, and with whom? And so it starts with you, but then it goes with whom? Who do I even want? And then you write down physical attributes. And we've been made ashamed in society that we shouldn't have physical preferences. Yeah, I should have physical preferences. It's not the only thing that matters. Of course, everybody knows that, but it really does. Because if you don't like looking at your partner, you'll be in trouble.
Well, that's the first test, right? I'm physically attracted to this woman, or I am, on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm repulsed by that person. Like, that's the first thing that you see, and your first litmus test as to whether or not this is somebody you're even remotely interested in.
Yes, exactly. So we shouldn't be ashamed of that. And this is not about telling people how to live their lives, but it's, for me, this is what I want. And under no circumstances will I settle for anything less, because I know I'm capable of more, and that's what I want, and that's what I'm going to get. So physical is one, but then it's also values. It starts with values, political, religious, right? Absolutely. If you don't care about either, then you should have somebody who doesn't care either. If you're strong on either side, there's no right or wrong, but the person has to be aligned, right? With different religions, can it work if people have different religions? Yes, but when it comes to raising children, just be aligned. Just find somebody who already has the same values as you, because compatibility regarding values means the same. Having compatible personalities does not mean the same. I'm ridiculously extroverted. 80% of my clients are introverts. I work almost only with introverted people. Fernanda is super introverted, which works well. There's no right or wrong. You just got to understand, what type of a woman do I want? Do I want somebody who's career driven, or do I want somebody who's going to make family a priority? You're rarely going to have both. And there's no right or wrong. I'm not interested in telling people what to do, but you got to know for yourself, for your own happiness, who do I want? And most men haven't even had enough experience to be able to make an informed choice. It's guesswork. That doesn't mean you need to be dating forever or date hundreds of people. No, but you got to get some experience to actually understand what it is you want. This exercise really helps in the beginning.
So you talk about compatibility. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And often, yeah, I think being compatible is important. I want to ask you what compatibility actually means and what it is, because I think sometimes people use it as an excuse for, in the case of men, for being an asshole, and in the case of women, for being bitches. Well, we just weren't compatible. No, you were an asshole. Like that doesn't mean we weren't compatible. It means that you didn't treat her well, or she didn't treat him well, or, you know. So what is compatibility? Like, what is that actually that we should be looking for?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with what you're saying, that a lot of the times people make excuses for bad behavior and then just blame it on
Mm-hmm.
some concept in personal development like compatibility.
Right.
100%. Compatibility just means you're aligned. You're aligned on your values, or you have matching personalities. And again, alignment and values should mean more or less the same, because your new business partner, your new best male, your male best friends, you agree on most things, core values, not on everything, and you're going to have some disagreements, but they're at the surface level, really. The people that are closest to you, you agree with, because me and my ex-wife, we had a lot of fundamental disagreements, and a lot of men have that. You cannot fix, no matter how much couples therapy you do, you'll never cure a lack of compatibility. If one person is on this side of politics, the other person, and I'm not really political. I don't want to put myself in either camp, because like I'm not, first of all, I live in Ireland, right? But in Germany, it's a bit more, yeah, I like this idea, I like that idea. I don't like to attach myself to either ideology. I have clear preferences, which I don't need to talk about because it's not about me. It's about helping everybody find what's theirs. But I like to be able to, oh, this idea makes sense. Let's evaluate the idea based on its merits, not the ideology that's attached to it.
Mm.
But anyway, if you're here on this side and she's here on this side, then it's never going to work. You will have so many arguments. Doesn't matter how much couples therapy you do. Doesn't matter how much communication you do. And by the way, a lot of the times when people treat each other badly, for most people who are good people, some people are just bad people. Sometimes when people get like passive aggressive with each other, it's because they have needs in a relationship that aren't being met, which comes from a lack of compatibility. For example, maybe as a man, I would like my partner to take care of herself physically. And I would like a partner who goes to the gym. Now, I haven't gone through a process of creating options for myself. So I end up with somebody who is not naturally excited about going to the gym and taking care of herself, and maybe her health habits aren't amazing. Now, are you going to become the tyrant in the relationship? And you can't force her, but like you can you can encourage her in the beginning a little bit, and then you should. But that's going to lead to frustration a year, 2, 3 down the line. It really does. So instead, you'd be much better off finding somebody who, Fernanda has been going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week before I ever met her for many years. You
Right.
know, so there's never, when I say let's go to the gym, it's not me forcing her to go to the gym. She's like, yeah, I was going to go anyway. Let's just align on a time of the day where it suits the both of us so we can go chill in the sauna and the pool afterwards. You know, so more often than not, compatibility means you're not right for each other. That being said, a lot of men, they can find a woman who's right for them and still mess it up with communication. This whole dating and relationship thing, like being able to attract and keep the right woman, it's only 3 things. It's communication, it's your confidence, and it's an understanding of the dynamics, some of which are not that politically correct. It is all, for me, based in kindness and respect and a relationship on eye level. But the way men and women react to each other isn't necessarily how we're being socially conditioned that we react to each other, because women sometimes like a really masculine man, a kind and a respectful man, but a man who's also masculine, you know? And everybody has, men and women, we all have masculine and feminine energy. And here's where it gets interesting. Different women want masculinity to a different degree. And that's why
Sure.
there's a beautiful variety, right? But compatibility really means, are we right for each other? Values, personality, lifestyles, goals, does that match? It's the number one thing.
I'm really glad that you said communication too, because I've heard from a lot of guys who will say, the gym is a great example. It's like, oh, she just wasn't taking care of herself. It's like, did you like? did you talk with her about that? Did you have conversation? Did you encourage her to go to the gym with you? Well, no, she just wasn't doing it. It's like, bro, she's not a mind reader. Like, and
Yeah.
plus you talk
Yes.
about masculinity, like that should be what we're doing. Like direction. It's masculinity is directional, right? So it's, hey, hon, we've been slacking. We need to get going. And you follow me. I'm going to lead and you follow me. Like I'm not an expert at this. I mean, I think most of us probably inherently know this, but yet we fail to communicate because we think she should just do it. And I think women are notorious for this as well. It's like, well, he should have done this. He should have done that. He should have treated me this way. He should have said this. We should have done these things. Like, did you tell him that? No, he should have just known. He doesn't. Nobody knows. Nobody just knows. I promise you, if he just knew, he would do it. And he's not doing it because he doesn't know, and vice versa. So you love each other, communicate with each other.
Yes, and oftentimes when there's conflict, we're not actually arguing about the thing in and of itself. We're having an ego defense mechanism. Wayne Dyer once said, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Mm.
And you'll really have to choose oftentimes. But it's, yeah, it's if she's really against it, right? If she's really doesn't want to go, well, then at some point it's just like, yeah, just move on. Most
Right.
people, this is a blanket statement that I'm going to make, which I just know in my soul that it's true. Most, I would say at least 50% of men who are in relationships, and again, I don't know the numbers, make it 30%, 50 or 80, I don't care. A significant amount of men would be a million times happier in their life if they just ended the relationship with the woman they're in right now and they found somebody else. Be that 30% or 50% or 80%, I don't know the number. There are millions of people in the US, let's take the US for an example, who are in relationships right now where the greatest source of unhappiness is their intimate partner. I know that in my soul that to be true.
The
And
exception I take on that one is if you're already married and especially if you have children. I'm not saying that you should continue in that relationship. I'm saying there's a heavier weight to that before you say, hey, this isn't working. I'm not compatible. Like there's more to it than that.
I agree. This is a really. I'm glad you brought that up, and maybe let's have a little bit of a discourse around that because I think this is super interesting. Because I'm the last person to say to just end it. No, you should
Right.
try. If you're 7 years into a relationship, you have a 2-year-old son, you got a house, I'm not saying, well, they listen to the podcast. Well, I guess this is it.
Right.
See you
Right.
later, honey.
Well,
I'm not saying that.
they might say, well, David said I could leave. Like things aren't good and we're all uncomfortable. And, I'm going to bail on the family. It's like, no, that's not what he said. Listen for
Yeah,
context
like
and
no,
nuance.
there's other people who are way more important in this life that you should listen to than me. But no, you should put a lot of effort and thinking into it. For example, it depends on how far you're into the relationship. If you're 1 year into the relationship, you're not going to try as much. You might try 1 or 2 months of fixing it. If you're 7 years into the relationship, you should try couples therapy, relationship, like whatever, right? Whatever, try something, but in your mind, no, I never owe any person the rest of my life. You should really try a lot. Really try a lot to make it work because for some, they should, and again, I'm not saying that, I'm saying it could be 30%, could be 70%. You should try to make it work first. But here's the problem. This argument that let's stay together for the sake of the children, I believe is responsible for men killing themselves, at least in part, not only obviously, and or women suffering, right? Suffering and really, really bad stuff happening because and I'm willing to change my mind on this. If I hear really good arguments against it, I just haven't to this day. I just think, and there's people like Jordan Peterson, who I respect so much. I think who's such a legend, right? In so many different ways. Huge respect. One thing where I do disagree with him a little bit is when he says, yeah, and maybe I misunderstood, right? And he would intellectually just like, put
Demolish
me on the
you.
mat. Yeah, immediately, right? But you're married now, and that's why you have to stay together because you're locked in and you can't run away. No, the reason you stay with somebody is not because you take choice away. The second you take choice away, you take joy away. I believe. Yeah, joy comes from gratitude. Yeah, joy comes from surprise, but joy also comes from choice. In me feeling like I have authority and agency to choose my situation, not because of a contract, I have to stick with this forever. I think people should be able to change their mind because also this coming back to this argument for the children, really, if you really dislike your partner and you really have tried, let's say you're 7 years together and you try for a whole year to make it work, and you're now not year number 8 and it's not getting any better because you're not aligned on your values and you never figured that out 7 years ago and it takes you time to figure it out. It was with me and my ex-wife the same thing. Do your children really want to see a half depressed, passive aggressive father? Because trust me, your psychosomatic symptoms will come through, or somatic psychosomatic, like it will manifest in your body. It will manifest in the way you treat your children. It is impossible not to affect. You can try to be the most loving father. Here's the problem. Your children will emulate you at some point. Not only do your children learn from what you say to them, but they copy your behavior. And you're setting the example that it's okay to go through life half depressed, because you will be half depressed. Even if you're really fulfilled in your job, if you're not happy in your intimate relationship, you cannot be truly fully happy. And your children will emulate you. I do not for a second buy this. And I think, look, is the ideal scenario, of course, mother, father who love each other, stay together, children. I believe 100% we can say, I think the data suggests very clearly that it's best, 100%. But a close second is father lives here, mother lives 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever down the road. They're both actively involved in the child's life, but they don't live together. Because if you, as a child, witness your parents not be, children have a sensor for it. They feel when mommy and daddy are tense, no matter how much they're trying to hide it, depending on the age, right? This argument to me doesn't hold. I think you should absolutely try to make it work 100%. But also, like, everybody gets to decide for how long. I'm 7 years, if I'm 15 years into the relationship, try it for a year and a half. But if it doesn't work, if you're 45 years old, I have seen so many people, including really close relatives of mine, who were significantly and deeply unhappy for the first 45, 50 years of their life. Then they ended a marriage, and the happiest years started when they were 40, 50 years of age, because they allowed themselves to leave it, and it was better for the children. Is it still hard for the children? Do children need a ridiculous amount of support through that time? Yes, but I believe it is much worse to stay together. It's my opinion. I may be completely wrong with that. What do you think?
I think we're pretty aligned. I tend to gravitate more, I think, than you do, based on what you said, towards no, you really need to put more effort into it. You really need to do everything that you can to make sure that you can maintain the relationship. And part of that, admittedly, might be because I'm actually in the middle of a divorce right now, so it might be that my bias is no, like, we need to stay and work on this. But it's also because I think that culturally, it's more likely that the narrative is to be flippant and casual about your commitments. And so that's where I push against, because society and culture says, be happy, be happy. Whatever you can do to be happy. Oh, you're not happy? Oh, you made those commitments? Doesn't matter. Be happy. I don't like that mentality, because you're not honoring yourself. You're not honoring your commitments. You're not honoring your word or other people that you made commitments to. So I think the greater risk, at least culturally where we sit, is that people are going to bail too soon, not stick around too long. That's my experience.
And I really think it's very important that you're doing that, because let's not have anything substantial anymore at all. That doesn't help anybody either, right? There's always trends, and then there's a counter trend. I think there's no one way to live life, but a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people would be served by saying marriage. And do you know Patrick Bet David?
Yeah, I do. I
So
know
I
of him.
don't
I don't know him personally.
same. I don't know him personally, but I've seen his stuff. One of the things he says, and he's obviously super intelligent and ridiculously successful. One thing he says is very interesting. He says, me and my wife, we've been married 13 or 15 years, something like that. We take marriage 1 year at a time. And I think managing expectations is really helpful. I'm not saying that's right for everybody, but when you're 30, 45, 25, and you say, I will be with you forever, that's a disingenuous commitment from the get-go. for some, not for others, because your brain evolves. You will not be the same person 20 years down the line. You don't know what happens. What happens if, because there's just so many I'm totally with you that you should try to make it work. You should really try to put a lot of effort in. But there comes a point, and like, really, you're right, more people should try to make their relationship work. At some point, we just have to allow ourselves to realize, if it doesn't work, I don't have to throw away my entire happiness forever, and I can find somebody else. And because the reason people are, again, like, if you didn't screen for compatibility in the beginning, there's still a lot that can be done, right? But if two people really fundamentally aren't aligned, and for those people, yeah, just find somebody who you're just more aligned with, and you'll probably be a lot happier.
Yeah, that makes sense. And especially if you, like you said, if you haven't been around or been together very long, or there's not other commitments, there's not kids in the relationship, that, that's a big factor as well. I am curious, like, to go back to something we talked about earlier, because I think this is a question on a lot of guys' minds. Is, you say the gym shouldn't be your primary place to meet people. I agree with that. I think there's barriers there that make it harder than it needs to be, and that's what makes it a challenge. Uh, but it's also a place a lot of people go socially, right? So where are the best places to go to meet women, to interact, to be social? What are some of the things that you would suggest? Because you were right about the bar and the club. I've said that myself. It's like, I don't want to go there. Like, I don't want to meet those type of women. That's not what I would be interested in. But you countered that. So I'm curious about where you think a guy should go.
Yeah. So one is everybody should just use online dating and get more serious about that. That's one, because that's not, so online dating will never replace in-person contact and in-person socializing. It never will, right? But it's fantastic. It's a fantastic tool to be able to get dates if you use it well. That's one. There's a lot of different apps. Get serious about that. That's one. The other thing is you can just go to shopping malls. Where are women in high quantities? They're in gyms, they're in shopping malls, they're in bars and clubs, right? And I think as a man, if you're a respectful, kind guy, and this may, for a lot of men, this seems so far outside of the reality. I could never introduce myself, approach a woman in a shopping mall. Yeah, you can. If you're a respectful guy, she doesn't want to talk to you. She gets to decide how long she wants to stay in an interaction with you. But it's your goddamn job, my apologies, to make the offer, right? It's like, it's your job to make the offer. You really have to do it, right? You have to walk over. All you have to do is just utter a couple of sounds. And then, yeah, there's a process of building attraction. But shopping malls are a fantastic place. You can go to Starbucks. You can go to the gym. But whenever, here's the difference between the gym and a shopping mall, or a gym and a bar or club, whenever it's a social circle where it's more or less the same people all the time, which is true for the gym, it's true for the yoga class, it's true for the bachata salsa class, right? It's a house party. Your approach has to be more indirect. You do general socializing, and then when you meet somebody, you build it more gradually. Whereas if you approach a woman on the street, in a shopping mall, in a bar club, in the first 20 seconds, she has to understand what your intent is. And then she gets to decide to opt in or opt out. Most guys, they go the pussy way. They try to be friends first and lovers later. Yeah, but John and Mary, it worked for them. It almost never works. It almost never works. Very rarely. Not never, but almost never. Let her know what your intent is from the beginning. Excuse me just a second. You're really cute. I had to come meet you. My name is David. What's your name? Boom. And then she could either say, no, thanks, I have a boyfriend, make up a boyfriend, or maybe there's a real one. It's her
Right.
choice. But let her know what your intention is.
Yeah, and I think, to go back to what you're saying about masculinity, that's a more masculine approach. Like, what do you want? I want you, I think. So let's see if that's the case. And just say it. Like, just say it. Just approach it that
Yeah.
way. I think that's really powerful. One of the things that I think and I think I got this from you, or saw a video that you've done on this, that I think highlights this concept of she gets to decide, is going for the first kiss. Like, it's your job as a man. This is what you say. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is your job as a man to initiate that, and then her job to decide whether or not
Yes.
it warms to that approach. But to not go in for the kiss is not a masculine behavior. That's what you want. Go for what you want. Of course, be respectful to her response to it. But that's what we should be doing. That makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, 100%. Because, and I've interviewed a lot of women. I've talked to Fernanda about that. Yeah, like if I like him and he doesn't kiss me on the first date, I don't even know if he liked me or not. Right. And remember, for her to want to meet you again for a second and a third or fourth date, which is one of the struggles that men have, the women don't want to meet them again for the second, third, or fourth date, because they weren't able to create, even if there's somebody that they might have compatibility with, they didn't know how to communicate in a way to get her interested. And one of the ways to do that is after an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, you go for the kiss, right? You got to build it gradually. You got to be very respectful in the way you build things, but you go in for the kiss. And a lot of guys, yeah, but what if she isn't ready? And they're genuinely afraid. And I remember that. I used to have that too. My heart was beating.
Of
My
course.
palms were sweating. I had butterflies before I went for the kiss. And it was more difficult than giving a presentation at work, right? But you do it. And if she turns her head away, then you're just cool. She's like, yeah, no worries. I just wanted to tell you something anyway. And you whisper something about her into her ear about, I don't know, gluten-free cookies or something, right? And it's just playful. It's not that big a deal. You have to have the mindset that no matter what happens, can't throw me off my game, because I'm a respectful guy, and she'll get to decide whether she wants it or not. But you got to make her the offer, because if you don't, she'll lose respect for you because she wants to be with a man. If she wasn't, she'd be dating a lesbian.
There's the highlight of the podcast right there. I like that. The other thing I gotta say is, speaking of compatibility, if I ever had a conversation with a woman about gluten-free cookies, the compatibility is dead. Like that date is dead. It's over. That and veganism, it's over. It's done. There's nothing else that we can go from here.
That's hilarious.
Uh,
Now because I'm actually celiac and I've been all my life.
Well, that's different. All right. If you've got a medical condition, okay. But if you're doing it by design or because you want to or something, that or a choice, that's strange to me. So, but I'll make an exception for medical conditions. Um, so with dating apps, obviously, there's a stigma associated with it. And I think if you're into hookup culture, like, dating apps are rad. If you're not, you're probably shy on the use of dating apps, but that doesn't sound like it's founded or warranted from your perspective.
Not at all, complete nonsense. There's so many people who find relationships through dating apps, and people always say, "Yeah, women." And there's obviously a difference between dating apps. Yes, the amount of women who go to Tinder for just a hookup is higher than on Bumble or Hinge. That being said, the way to collapse any limiting belief is with truth, not with another belief.
Mm.
And the truth is, some women go to dating apps just for a hookup. Some women go to dating apps just for a relationship. A lot of women go for relationships who are open to both, right? And then you might say, yeah, but you have to understand that most women who go to dating apps, the second they meet somebody, my mindset is, if she goes on a date with me, she'll lose interest in all the other guys anyway. Because in dating, you have to be able to switch between two paradigms. So I'm going to go on a little tangent, but it's important for guys. You got to be able to switch between objective reality, understanding, well, objectively, my face is maybe 6.5, and this is my market value. You, in a general life context, you want to be very humble. You want to be aware of your mistakes. You want to be aware of your shortcomings, because it makes you humble, a good person, and you're going to be able to improve. You have to first recognize where you suck to then be able to improve. The problem is, in dating, you need an almost unreasonable degree of confidence. That you got to be able to enter the state of no competition. When I'm on a date, there's no competition. It's playful, and I don't 100% believe it. I can still make fun of it. I have a degree of meta level awareness, but there's no competition. But even if she's just going for hookups, the second she meets me, after an hour and a half, she'll either love me or hate me, right? Not because I'm disrespectful, but because I'm gonna communicate my opinion in such a polarizing manner. She'll love it or hate it. Most men communicate like lukewarm water. You want to be like Moses part in the Red Sea, where some will hate you, some will love you. The greatest insult known to man is she shakes your hand after an hour and a half and she tells you it was nice to meet you, and you'll never hear from her again. That's the gray zone. That doesn't help anybody. You want to be kind, you want to be respectful, but you better communicate your personality more effectively. And so the truth is, there's a lot of women who go to dating apps just for relationships, and some are, at least a lot of them, who are open to relationships, right? In the US, use Tinder, use Bumble, use Hinge, use Match.com. There's certain, if you have certain political affiliations, there's some for that side, some for that side. There's some for certain religious ones. Use them. Learn how to present yourself in an effective way. Dating apps are a fantastic place to meet women. Now, you still should, if you're a man, if you want to be able to call yourself a man, you better develop the skill set of being able to meet women in real life also. How can you call yourself a man if you don't? And people say, he just doesn't have the balls. No, it's not that simple. It's a skill set. And like, I have a lot of friends who are, not a lot, but I have some friends who are psychologists and psychotherapists, and they use a process called progressive desensitization. If we're afraid of something, yes, there's NLP techniques to get rid of phobias, but you can progressively desensitize yourself towards the fear of approaching, right? You can first start saying hi to people, and you can ask for directions. You can take one step that's challenging but not overwhelming, right? You want to challenge somebody but not overwhelm them. Because, he just doesn't have the balls. Oh, that's a very simplified version that doesn't accurately depict reality. The truth is, he hasn't gone through a process of progressive desensitization, which everybody can go through, because some men have more fear, some men have less fear. But you better commit yourself to it. Don't just relax at it, because, by the way, every time you do an approach, that'll help you with your performance on the date later on, because make no mistake, it's performance. It's not about putting on an act. You're still going to be you. But whether you show up in an exciting manner with good energy or not, you can be honest in an attractive way, and you can be honest in a disattractive way. Exactly what you were saying earlier. We just weren't compatible. No, you were an asshole. You can be compatible and still nice, Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Well, and you should be you, because you can't fake it forever. You could fake it for a few dates. You could probably even get laid by faking it. But
Yeah.
if you want to be in a long-term relationship, like, at some point the facade is going to come off, and you're going to be able to reveal, or have to reveal, who you really are. And I want to know who she really is too. I don't want to be put on by a woman who's pretending to be something she's not. So I mean, this is a sales tactic too, right? Is yes is the best answer. No is actually the second best answer. Like, and I want to qualify and disqualify in sales at least as quickly as I possibly can. I don't want to be in limbo. I don't want to hang out. I don't want to maybe. I don't want to wonder. It's yes or it's no. And no allows me to drive on to something else.
That's a really beautiful example, because you don't want the wrong clients, right? Same with me. I don't want the wrong clients. There's people who come to me and they want to work with me, and I say, no, thank you so much. And they're like, oh, but I have this much money. As yeah, no, there's no personality fit, right? Because this is, if we're going to be speaking with each other, I have to respect you as a person. We don't have to become best friends at all, right? But there has to be a degree of compatibility. And the people who you're gonna make the most amount of money with at some point, the people who are gonna, like your best friends, the ones who are gonna make you feel really alive, that you're gonna have the best time with, your wife, your girlfriend, you better be aligned. So people say, don't talk about politics and religion on the first date. No, you better. You better. If it's something you care about, you bring that up. Not the whole time. Don't bore her. But for 3-4 minutes, you can absolutely say, I really dislike this. I really like that. That really works. Because if you're there and she's there, and then you might as well find that I've had dates where after 7 minutes, I got up. Right. I don't want to go into too much detail now, but it's like, oh, we realized we had a conflict of compatibility. You know, she believed in certain ideologies, and she wasn't the biggest fan of freedom of speech. You get what I'm saying, I think. And
Sure.
I realized that after 7 minutes, and because I made fun of some of the ideology within the first 5 minutes, because it's something that I really despise. I didn't make fun of the person, but of the idea. I think we got to be able to attack. We got to be always respectful towards people. You never hear me talk bad about people, but ideas. We got to be able to attack the ideas. So I playfully attacked the idea. We realized, oh, we're really not aligned. I immediately switch hat. I was like, okay, the date is over. So we just continue the conversation in a friendly manner. I'm just trying to understand her as a person, because I'm still interested in understanding where she's coming from. We finished our burrito bowl. We shook our hands, and I never spoke to her ever again. But you know what's hilarious? Then I think a couple of years later, she commented under my TikTok videos.
You cut out right there. I didn't even hear what you said. That last part. She
Oh, I'm
commented on one of
sorry.
your videos.
Years later, she finds one of my TikTok videos and she goes, I went on a date with that guy and it was terrible. She says,
Oh, she
and
did?
it wasn't a bad date. It was just, I really told her, I don't like that ideology
Yeah.
that you have. And it was fine for me. There wasn't even any outright conflict. It was just, we literally shook our hand at the end. It was like,
Yeah.
have a good life.
It's like the comment back to that is the feeling was mutual. It's
Yes,
like
exactly. Yeah. No,
we
I
both did
didn't want
not
to.
have a no, you don't need to get into that. It's not necessary. I think the issue is a lot of guys tend to believe that it's like a negotiation, like, oh, well, it's a give and take relationship and it's a negotiation. And I'm like, I'm not interested in a negotiation with someone I'm intimate with. I'm romantic. Like, I don't want to settle. I don't want to negotiate. I want to find somebody out there who's, like you said, aligned with me, who believes in the same thing. Maybe we come at it a different way, and that's okay. But like, I'm not going to negotiate with that. It's just not of interest to me.
Yeah. And a lot of people talk about compromises. You got to
Yes.
compromise. And people who believe most in compromise are in relationships they shouldn't be in. Because yes, you're going to have to compromise to an extent, but people who talk a lot about, you don't have to compromise nearly as much as you think in a relationship. Yes, dreams require sacrifice. Every sacrifice, compromise, of course, 100%, but not nearly as much as you think. You can live an amazing life as a man. You can go to the gym exactly as much as you want. You can do as much work or as little work, if you're that fortunate, as you choose to. And then you find a woman, not who you can make your slave, where you can be the tyrant and you can fit her into your schedule, but a woman who naturally aligns with the attention you're able to give her. Because some people are going to be able to give her 4 hours a day. Some men are going to be able to give her 5 hours a week in the beginning, and there's no right or wrong, but you just better communicate it up front. And I wouldn't expect her to compromise on the most important things to her either. It's
Right.
just there's a natural degree of compatibilities. Again, as I said to Fernando, I was like, let's go to the gym. Yeah, cool. It's not a compromise for her to go to the gym. She's been doing that all along. Now, are there moments where we're going to compromise? Of course. Certain things, yes, but really a lot less than you think. If you're compromising a lot, you're unhappy. And the funny thing is, when people get like, when men or women get passive aggressive, they have unmet needs. It's not that they're bad people oftentimes. It's not just, oh, you're passive aggressive, you should be more grateful. No. If I don't feel like I can voice my, not even criticism, but my needs to my partner because I'm afraid of losing her. And I have unmet needs in that relationship, and that makes me unhappy because we need to meet our needs. That
Hmm.
I'm not talking about physical needs, just I'm talking about
Right.
psychological needs. Then that will come out in unhappiness in other ways. You know, the people who like the typical example, somebody yells at a barista for putting in the wrong milk or whatever. Yeah, most of the time, is that wrong? Yes, of course that's wrong. Should you not do that? Of course you shouldn't do that. 100%. That's bad action. That's bad behavior. But sometimes good people act like that when either they're in the wrong state or when their needs aren't being met. Because if you're unhappy, it'll manifest itself in different ways. That's why I always say in the beginning, ask for more than you'll actually want in the relationship, because then it'll be easy to scale back. Most men ask for 50% of the freedom and the fulfillment of psychological need they want, 50% of it in the beginning. And then later on, they ask for a little bit more, and then creates conflict. Just in the beginning, say, I'm going to be a difficult person to be with. Let her know. Because like not because I'm disrespectful. I will treat you like a queen. I'll be so nice, but also yeah, I don't know. I sing under the shower. I do affirmations. It's like I do stuff that makes living together. You know, I'm not the tidiest person or whatever, right? Oh, Jordan Peterson, I didn't make my bed. Oh no, you know, it's like maybe, babe, you'll have to make my bed. But you front load that a lot. She'll realize, my God, there's so much value that comes with this guy. I'm okay with that. But you ask for more freedom than you'll actually need in the relationship because it'll be easier to move it back later than to ask for more
And
later
to
on, by the way. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
no, I was
Just
just yeah, keep going.
one last thought on that is that also applies to the intimate area, by the way. If you as men, if we want something, ask for more in the beginning and never put pressure on her. That's all I'm saying. But ask, suggest way more in the very beginning. All fantasies you have, do it within the first couple of months. It'll be way more difficult to try something crazy 7 years down the line than in the beginning. That's now when you're in it, you can absolutely still do that if you have open and honest conversations, if you can really make her feel like a queen, if you can let her embrace her feminine nature because you're in your masculine, then she'll be very open to trying a lot of things, right? And then obviously you see and you'll find common ground. The easiest hack is just try a lot of things in the beginning. She'll realize, okay. And then you can just go back to just doing the regular stuff. But if you're just doing the regular stuff and then you want to try some things, it'll be a lot more difficult to do that later on if you haven't done so in the beginning.
Plus, she'll probably say yes, and then you win. So it's fine. Like we just make a bigger deal of things than we ought to.
Yeah.
I think that's what, and that's why we get in our heads, right? We get in our heads about, oh, what if she says this, or what if she does that, or what if she dumps me? What if she doesn't, bro? Like what if that woman that you see is waiting for somebody like you? You know, or you have a fantasy, let's say in the intimacy area, and you communicate with her, and she's like, actually, that sounds fun. I would like to do this. And she takes it even a step further. Like, what if that was the outcome because you opened your mouth and shared what was on your mind?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, brother, I got to tell you, I really enjoy actually watching. I enjoy your videos on Instagrams where I see them mostly, and I enjoy watching you and your fiance. It seems like you guys have a really cool relationship. I like watching you two interact.
Thank
And
you.
not only that, but it's all the information I've seen is super helpful. It's not gimmicky, it's not hacky, it's not manipulative or taking advantage of women. I can see that there's a genuine level of respect for women, which I certainly appreciate. And I would like you to tell the guys where to go. So if they want some advice and want some tips, potentially even hire you as a client of yours, let them know where to go.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, man. Really, really enjoyed that and looking forward to having further conversations. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Yeah, if people want, they can just apply for a free initial consultation call. We have a link on Instagram. There's Spotify videos, there's TikTok videos, there's YouTube videos. In a free initial call, we'll look at their situation and we'll see if and how that makes sense to work together. We put out a lot of content on Instagram Reels, a lot of long form content on YouTube because I really like making long form content because it's one of my passions. So there's some videos where I'm in the German Alps where I talk about masculinity and I go on a 28-minute rant or something. You know, they Instagram videos might get a couple million views, the YouTube videos might get a couple hundred views, but that's where my real passion lies because there's so much in it. I really, really think this is such an important area, and because there's so much unnecessary suffering, right? And life can be so cool if you have better relationships, you know. So man, thank you so much. This was really a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll sync everything up so the guys know where to go. But again, appreciate you. Let's stay in touch. Let's keep the conversations going. I know it's going to serve a lot of men who listen in our community. So thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ryan.